probably would have saved a lot more just to have an extra
Mm.
cash flow because I didn't understand seasonality, of fitness studios. Right now, it's hard. I'm kind of like, I hope that I get some auto renews within the next, week to pay my instructors.
Welcome to the Before You Buy or Sell a Business podcast, where we help buyers and sellers learn more about the acquisition process, discuss recent transactions, and stay up to date on the latest news in the market. Here's your host, Jared Johnson.
All right, today I've got Jeanise Hatcher on the podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, Jared, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad we can finally get this done. I know you and I've been trying to link up for a little while and get this to happen, so I'm glad we're finally getting it to happen. And I know you're in Austin, so not too far from me. We tried to get that to work, and maybe one day we can find a way to meet up and do some stuff in person. But so I know you have a pretty diverse background. Um, let's see, all from dancing. I found you on TikTok once on accident. I was scrolling through some content one morning and I said, wait a minute, I think I did a load for her. And I showed my wife and she thought it was really cool. So maybe just give us the entire background and how you ended up where you are now.
Absolutely. So the page that you found is actually my spiritual page. I am very much into like holistic wellness as well, which is part of the reason why I purchased a studio to kind of fit into the physical part of wellness. But that is more so my spiritual page. So I've done spiritual readings. Oh God, I started that page maybe about 3 years ago. Built it from the ground up. Accumulated almost 2,000 followers. Where I just do like live spiritual readings for people. I've also done personal readings for people, all kind of from that page. And so that's just kind of a part of my holistic wellness. And right now I'm working on like blending my readings with Pilates and motivational speaking. And that is kind of what that page is dedicated towards. But in my daytime, I also work for Meta during my 9 to 5. And I have an extensive dance career, as you said, which is what also brought me to the studio. So I was a previous professional dancer. I danced for roughly 22 years before like I got
Wow.
injured, and then I actually really wanted to open a dance studio at first. So after 5 tries of opening a dance studio, I finally just found a Pilates studio. And at my old age of needing strength training and kind of to um, rejuvenate my body itself, I found Pilates. And so I decided to open a Pilates studio. And like I said, now just kind of working on blending all of these arts together, which I think is very different. Most people see like spiritual readings and meditation synced with yoga, and not so much Pilates. So
Yeah, that's very interesting. So, as far as like dancing goes, is it fairly common for people to get injured dancing? Because I feel like I hear that a lot, that somebody spent their entire lifetime doing it and then end up getting injured, or it's a series of injuries that end up, unfortunately ending the career a lot of times. And so, I'm hoping that that's not always the case, but I guess every professional sport, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you seem to end up with some kind of injury. In the dancing, I don't think people realize how hard it is on your body too.
yes, actually, if you look it up, dancing is one of the most brutal sports, if you want to call it, that you can actually do. Worse than football, worse than basketball. You are just totally wear and tearing your body. And in younger studios, you don't really know, or while you're younger and you're in the studio growing up, you're not taught about maintaining your body, how important it is to stretch after you dance, the different types of well, you're dancing all day, but you still need to build the muscle and strengthen your core and do anything, all those things to help protect you from injury. So I think as you just go and go and go, I mean, you're in competitions. There were times where I was dancing at school and then I had dance, 5 hours or more every single day after school. And you do that all the way up into college. And then in college, you're dancing all day because that's your curriculum. And that's where you get injured pretty much. That's where I got injured. It happens more so than we know. I believe I only know out of my entire graduating class, maybe one or two people that are still actively dancing on Broadway.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that is some crazy stats that I don't think people know. And I'm going to use it from now. So I coach my son's football team,
Okay.
and we get parents that are like, I don't want my kid to play football anymore because I'm afraid they're going to get hurt. So I'm going to tell them now, no, just keep them away from dancing because that's the dangerous sport. You got to keep playing football, and I'm going to give them your page to go follow. So, but
Absolutely.
I'm just
See,
teasing. It's all
yeah.
I think anything, yeah, working that hard. I mean, it's crazy how much your body needs to recover and everything. So,
Mhm.
we all don't take care of ourselves the way we should.
No. And it's funny, I was like, in college, and obviously you don't know much about Pilates. We just think it's like, oh, it's a sport for old ladies, right? It's some old women do. And one of my instructors used to like hound us, like, you guys need to take Pilates. You need to strengthen your core. And we would all just look at her like, this lady's nuts. Like, we're not taking Pilates. One, we can't afford it. Two, it's just for old people and we're cool. We don't need to strengthen like that. And then now looking back on it, it's like, oh wow. I wish someone actually would have showed me and told me and let me actually experience it, rather than just telling me, but hey, go and take this class for 4 weeks. Let me know how you feel afterwards. Do you feel like you're better in your dance classes? Are you activating muscles that you didn't even know you had to help you with your dance functions or whatever? But none of that is taught. We're not educating our kids in sports or dance, that they need that strength training and as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, well, we'll come back to Pilates in a second. So, you mentioned your normal job. I know you've worked at some pretty large companies. I believe Pepsi. What was it? You already mentioned Meta. I think there was it Apple?
Apple, yes.
So with those, with your normal, day job, I guess we'll call it, what do you do, and what have you done for those companies?
So I'm basically in supply chain, currently an infrastructure materials manager. A lot of my roles has centered around planning and inventory. So supporting data
Okay.
centers, or when I was at Apple, supporting consumer goods, just ensuring all of our end customers got their product. Right now, I work greatly with like internal customers, so it's not as customer facing. But as you know, it's tech. It changes very quickly. I'm not doing the same thing that I was doing last year. So it can be very busy, very time consuming, especially in supply chain. It's not a pretty role. It's very messy, very strategic. I enjoy it, but it is a lot of stress.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah. So at what point did you decide, you kind of hinted at it, I guess you were starting dance studios or trying to get one off the ground a couple times. At what point did you decide, hey, I'm going to kind of change a little bit and look for a business to buy?
This one's actually big, and it's not a disrespect to Meta or anything. I love my 9 to 5, but it wasn't just my company. It was previous companies that were going through massive layoffs, and it scared me. It made me think that I need to have more than one income. I really need to diversify my financial portfolio, outside of stocks and just saving money. And there's something to give myself to fall back on that I actually enjoy, and that's what kind of caused me to like look for a Pilates studio. I can't say I was looking for a dance studio at first because that was my first love. But me being injured, I bought like an old
Hmm.
Pilates machine, not the one that I have, and started doing Pilates and fell in love with Pilates. And it became a fad, as you know. Steve Harvey's daughter, Lori Harvey, was all over the place talking about Pilates, and I thought, oh well, maybe a Pilates studio, not a dance studio. Like I like that. It reminded me of ballet almost, because if you know, it's a series of structured movements. And it reminded me of
Hmm.
dance in a way. And so I was like, I could see myself doing this. And that kind of prompted me to go and look for a business just to get more security for myself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it's a great reason. And then you kind of blended the things you really enjoy doing, and you kind of found a way to connect those two. So, all right. So then how did you find this specific business that you ended up buying?
This one is funny. I was actually talking to one of my friends, and I live in Gerald, so it's nothing out here. And I was thinking, well, maybe best to just start from the ground up. And he's like, "You're crazy. Why would you ever want to start a business like that? Like, do you know how hard that is? And I was like, isn't that how everyone does it? And he's like, no, you're going to buy it. I was like, I can buy a business? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I went on Biz Buy Sale and looked up like fitness studios and, saw all types of things, boxing clubs. But this was the only Pilates studio in Austin, Texas. And as I dug into it and looked a little deeper, I thought, okay, the old owner is retiring. This business is cash flowing. He kind of taught me some things to look for because I'd never done this process before. And I said, let's do it. I think I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. So that's kind of how I ended up.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you bring that up because that was the main reason that I even started the podcast, because there's so many people that don't know you can buy a business, and there's some people who don't know you can sell their business either. And it's kind of fascinating to see people with this like light bulb go on that like, wait a minute, my business is worth money, I can sell it, or vice versa, somebody saying, I don't want to, kind of throw darts and hope that it works by doing a startup. I can actually buy a business that's already, somebody's already put that crazy effort into it, and now they can transition, hand it off to you. And of course, there's always things you can do to improve it and make it better and stuff. But yeah, that was the biggest thing, was there's so many people out there that don't know you can, and then there's not a lot of good information either when you're looking online. And unless you really have done it before or you're in the industry, it's extremely difficult to understand how it actually works. And so I'm glad you brought that up. So that's great. So okay, so you found it on Biz by Sell, and then what? Walk me through what you did from there.
So I contacted Mitch, who I know you work with a lot, a great broker. And he kind of walked me through the steps. He said, I'll be your broker, but you need to hire a lawyer. You need to get an accountant, and we're going to kind of do the due diligence process. And so that's sort of where it all started. Me understanding, one, how much the business cost, how much, the business was making cash flows is something that I can afford to do with my current job. Am I going to be able to manage both as far as a resource standpoint? Really just digging into the details, understanding the lease. I even thought about selling my house, to move closer because the studio is an hour away from me. So it's just me analyzing, doing all of these different things that I needed to do in order to, one, purchase the business and keep it successful. And it was a pretty long process. I believe it took 3 to 6 months from beginning to end, maybe,
Mhm.
for the entire process. So yeah, really just starting out that due diligence piece, looking at all her paperwork and making sure this is a good business to invest in.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did it that way. And I think it probably helps having Mitch, who specializes in fitness industry and studios and does stuff all over the country, is really good about not being extremely pushy and kind of making sure people actually dig into the business. And one of the things that is kind of odd about the industry as well is you get a lot of people that they buy a business, they just kind of look at it and go, yeah, well, the broker said it's worth this and the numbers are okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And I'm glad you took the time and did the due diligence. And you get a lot of people that are just rushing, right? The first thing they always ask me, how long is this going to take? And I tell them all, like, typically 60 days or so. However, there's always things that can come up that could delay it. And I definitely recommend that you do proper due diligence. You really need to look into the business, make sure you understand what you're buying, and make sure what you're buying is what's being presented to you. So I'm glad you went and did that. So if you could provide any kind of advice in regards to the due diligence, what would you give to somebody that's looking to buy?
One of the biggest things that was told to me was to get a lawyer. Your broker, especially a broker like Mitch that's dealing with a buyer and seller, can only give you so much helpful information. So if you've never done this process, I mean, it's so many things. I didn't know. I didn't know what a lot of these lines meant. The lease terminology, even the loan terminology. You're just signing your life away. So it's really important to have a lawyer that is also in your industry to help guide you along and say, hey, no, you don't need this. Or, I mean, even little things like the mileage, because the old owner could go and leave the business and open a brand new business 5 miles. That's in the lease. So those little nuances that he would know what to look for, and your broker even might necessarily know to look for, you won't always know to look for. So just having someone in your corner is very, very, very important.
Yeah, that is some excellent advice. There's so many different things when you're reading through the purchase agreement. And one thing I've been noticing lately that's been happening is I've been trying to spend a little bit of extra time looking through the purchase agreements for the buyer, and then also if there's any addendums to it. I've seen a lot of times where someone tries to just sneak something in there at the last second. And if you don't catch it, I mean, you could sign something and then you're coming back later going, that's not true. That wasn't in there. And then you're reading it like, oh my gosh, it was at this one paragraph or one sentence at the very end that they threw in on the third addendum. And yeah, so
If I can add to that, it also protects you on the back end. So I did have my previous owner, stay on for a while. And when she left, obviously the agreement came with all of the furniture. And then she came back and said, oh, no, I bought this furniture before we even did this. So I bought it like a few weeks, after we signed the lease, which I know to not be true. So it's to also cover you and make sure that if you did do something like that, you're covered, you're protected, and you can say, no, you can't have that furniture, you can't have the water fountain, all this stuff stays with the business and you're protected. So you can't have that happen as well.
yeah, oftentimes people think, hey, we get along great, everything's okay, and we would never have a disagreement. And then, it's a great way to still say, hey, I do trust you, and I really hope that we'll never have a problem. However, let's put it in writing just to make sure.
Exactly.
So you have something to fall back on. So that's great. So when you went through that portion, you kind of came up with a purchase price. Was there anything that you had to negotiate on the front end or throughout the process?
We did do some negotiations, and forgive me because I can't 100% remember exactly what they were because it was last year. But we did bring the price down a little bit. And I believe it was because, some of the equipment we knocked off, it was aged severely. So we knocked the price off of that. And I believe we took into account the cash flow because of COVID. She lost a great deal of cash flow, a great deal of clients. So we kind of factor that in as well, to kind of help me lower the price and get a fair price that worked for the both of us. And then there was, again, lease negotiations, right? The standard things that you do when you buy a business. So
Yeah, those landlords have been challenging lately, and I think it was also partially because of COVID. And we get a lot of people that I try to tell them up front, hey, start working with the landlord if you can, or at least at the very minimum, ask the seller, how is the landlord? Because they usually will kind of let you know how they are and how easy they are to work with. And that can really determine how long it's going to take, if they're even willing to assign the lease or do a new lease. And if you can figure that out on the front end, it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of energy later. So
yeah, and Jared, I know you remember with mine, we kind of messed that one up a little bit. The lease kind of held us up past closing. Well, did we close? We closed a little bit late, I think. But it was due to the lease and just them assigning the lease. I think at first they wanted to double check my finances and wasn't really sure if I could even like afford the lease. And then we had to explain to them, no, like this business is cash flowing. And it's just a lot of little nuances, like you say, that you really need to go over before you go ahead and like sign the paperwork, because boy, I think I would have probably screwed myself if I just went in it by myself.
yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it too. And what I tell people often is, hey, I understand that this is causing a delay, and it's not the bank's fault, it's not the buyer or seller's fault. You're working with the landlord, but still don't rush it and just sign whatever and just say, I just want to get this transaction done. You need to make sure that what you're signing and what you're agreeing to is still going to set you up to be successful within the business. Because we've got a lot of the landlords that I feel like they didn't do too well during COVID for various reasons, and now they're looking at it as an opportunity to try to recoup some of that. And then they're also looking at it to be a little bit more conservative with who they allow as a tenant. So it is causing a lot of delays. But then I feel like people go, oh my gosh, I have to hurry up and get this done now. So I'll just sign whatever. Let's just move forward. And it's like, no, 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 no. You still need to take your time and make sure you're getting yourself into something that you're going to be able to afford.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to do it too in case you want to change locations. I battled with this because we had a capacity issue at the studio. We can only grow so much more because of the space. We can't fit any more reformers or any more equipment. And it's just really essential to make that decision, try to make that decision before you sign the lease. Because now I'm in the space and it could be a little bit more difficult for me to navigate, me saying, hey, I mean, I want a bigger space, but now I'm kind of confined to their strip, right? I'm kind of stuck with them if I don't want to pay any kind of crazy fees or whatever to get out of the lease. And I wish I would have just taken the chance on myself and gotten a bigger space and made them pay for the reno and all of that beforehand, because now I'm still stuck with the capacity issue. I've signed the lease. I'm in that space for 10 more years, and it's becoming a challenge for me to grow all over again. And I'm wanting to renovate the space, and now they won't help me with renovation. So a few things that you learn in the process, but if you want to move, make any changes, do it prior to signing the lease. Try and negotiate that with your landlord.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice. I appreciate you saying that. So
Yeah.
again, and it's funny because people will say, well, there's no lease, there's no landlord. And I'm like, a little bit of like, yes, they're getting excited because you're not going to have to deal with it. So it definitely does happen. So we got it together, got everything done. You, took over the business. So maybe kind of let me know, how did that go? How was the first couple days, first couple weeks? Any surprises?
Really, it was overwhelming. I wish I kind of would have better prepared myself, I think, in the knowledge of Pilates and managing a Pilates studio before I jumped into the business, because I was a fitness person and I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's ran like a dance studio where I had worked previously and like understood things, but also that was so many years ago. So being well versed in what you're buying, the systems, the POS system, understanding like the teachers and even the clientele that you're dealing with was very important. And I wish I kind of would have done that beforehand, but it was a challenge. So I had never kind of dealt with like a mind body system or anything before. And my previous owner had the oldest version of mind body. So everything was wonky.
Mm.
Everything was click this to get that. So the first 2 weeks was stressful. Oh, I forgot about this. I lost my admin immediately after purchasing the business.
Oh no.
Yes. Because, it was still, well, we were out of COVID, but it was just kind of like, hey, I lived an hour away. Do we introduce myself to the team in person over Zoom? We decided that it would be best over Zoom, which was not great at all. It was very, very hard for me to kind of earn respect from the teachers, especially with me allowing the old owner to still be there. So it was a lot of power struggles. The clients were very confused. What's going on? Like half of them knew that there was a new owner, half of them knew that there wasn't. There was a lot of clients trying to like, hey, this is the old process. We used to do this. And a lot of little things where you're like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. I don't want to say getting over, but kind of trying to extend the leash here because you're a new owner and you have to be cautious of that as well. If you don't know the business, you're being pulled in so many different directions when you first take over. It's just a challenge. Clients are used to the way that things used to be done. They're not done that anymore. So you have to be really vigilant with your communication, with who you are, especially with me. I don't have the bandwidth to be in my business every day. So it was very odd for clients not seeing their owner every day because that was the way that the previous owner ran the business. So really, I guess you could say the change management was the hardest piece when I first got into the role. The first 2 months, 2 weeks to a month for sure. And until I got me an admin to kind of take over, which also quit 3 months later after that. So,
Oh, you're just getting hit one after another. So if you could go back and do it again, how would you have done it differently?
I think before I purchased the business, I would have acted like a member for a month. I would have gone there probably
Hmm.
every day just
Okay.
to see how she's running the business on the back end, how the clients are. Because I think what's also important is the clients to owner match. Um, I am
Hmm.
younger than a lot of my clientele, so I don't want them to be fearful of that. That I'm so much younger than them, and I am a different race, and that has been a big thing as well. Pilates is not a well-known activity for African American women. So to own one, the only one in Austin, that is, a challenge, going in and making it a cultural fit for myself, as well. So probably would have been in there to make sure that I feel comfortable, that I'm comfortable with my teachers, um, that the clients are actually going to stay, because I did have a lot of clients leave. Just getting more security, I guess, for myself before actually taking over the business. Learning as much as I can about the finance piece, how much money I'll actually need, how much cash flow I'm actually going to be getting month over month. Yeah, I probably would have saved a lot more, just to have an extra cash flow, because I didn't understand seasonality, of fitness studios. Right now, it's hard. I'm kind of like, I hope that I get some auto renews within the next, week to pay my instructors, because you're also getting all of that money taken out of your income off the top. So the SBA loan, the lease, all of that is immediately taken out of your income, right? So if I would have known, hey, save a lot more, understand how the Pilates world works, what the instructors are like, what they need, what the previous owner was like, and what these clients need to continue to come to your business and keep it successful.
Yeah, that's some excellent transparency. I appreciate that. I feel like there's so much information, especially on Twitter, and it's just like, go buy a business, it's easy and everything will be great. And very rarely do people say the first 3, 6, 9 months was terrible. I was crying in the corner every night, like having a hard time, and at the end of the day, almost everybody tells me they overcame it,
Yeah.
but it was really difficult. And I hate when I see, oh, just buy a $6 million HVAC company. It's not hard at all. Like, and then all these people just try to jump in and buy a business. And I'm glad that you're being transparent because not everybody is.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you've overcome it. So do you feel like now it's kind of in a little bit more of a better spot where it's a little bit easier to operate?
Yes, so actually we just lost the previous owner a month ago, so March. Um Most of it was like power struggle, because there were changes that I would be making or trying to implement, but the old owner was still there. And the clients were like, "Well, but this is not how we used to do it," or a price change,
Mm.
right? They were flipping out, and it's partly because the old owner was still there. And to be very, very transparent, I feel like after we left her, or after she left, sorry, then I find it like a weight finally lifted off my shoulders, and I'm able to make changes and run the way that I want to run without so much pushback. So I feel like it has settled. I feel like, and this is not just where I am. I'm sure this is other businesses, it's corporations as well. Your instructors have a certain loyalty towards their old boss or who they're used to working with over so many years. And so changes that I would try to implement would not be met well. It would be met with resistance. But now that she's gone and they just have me, it's being taken well. I'm able to feel more comfortable in the space, even, because there was even power dynamics when I would walk in, and I can look back and laugh on this now. But you would go in, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, happy," and then walks in. Oh, I'm sorry, you can blurb out her name. The previous owner walks in, and everyone's like, the energy shifts, and it's like, who's the owner? Is she
Yeah.
the owner? And now that she's gone, I feel
Mm.
a lot better with the changes, even though I'm not gonna lie, I lost a great chunk of revenue. She was not only the owner, she was also an instructor. So I lost a lot of her private clients. I lost 4 group classes that she was teaching. And I took a big dip in revenue. which made me very uncomfortable. I called Mitch several times, like, Mitch, I just want to sell it. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. He's like, I'm not going to let you do that. You can't. So, but now to the point where I'm feeling like I can truly make it my own. And even I'm crazy because I'm like, well, maybe I can squeeze in a renovation loan. Um, just to add more and then making it truly mine, and building it from there and getting comfortable with being the face, right? As she used to be. It's easier, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in the future.
Yeah, I know. And that's another great point to bring up. It's funny, I've had people contact me and say, hey, is there something you could do to help me? I can't get the seller to leave. And I kind of laugh and I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you want me to do? And they're like, well, I know there's a rule within the SBA that says that they can only stay on for 12 months as a consultant. Can you point me to that rule? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, no problem. So, take it out of the standard operating procedures, the SBA guidelines, send it to them. And I've had that happen to me at least 3 or 4 times where they come back and say, I'm going to use this to tell them I can't violate the SBA guidelines. I need you to be done. And partially I get it. For that seller, that was their identity, right? That was their baby. That was their business. And it's tough to let go of that sometimes. But as you're pointing out, there kind of needs to be this transition period where they're showing you this is where everything is, this is how to operate, this is what you need. And then they need to be able to let go and you come in and maybe call them if you need them. But otherwise, yeah, there's often times where it kind of gets drug out. And of course, on the flip side, there's also times where it's great and they get along perfect, or the seller says, I really just want to do this one little piece of the business that I love doing. And if you just let me do that, like I'll stay out of your hair and I'll support you and I'll push you. And sometimes that's the case. And so again, I really appreciate the transparency, and you're giving people a lot of great advice on how to handle it when they take over the business. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I wish that our relationship would have been the latter. I think it started off that way. I felt like we kind of just had the power struggle after she saw that I was able to make changes and I'm kind of understanding what I'm doing and understanding what I'm looking at. And she still kind of wanted the control over the business. And she even came to me and said, I think I'm just really struggling with buyer's remorse. And we had the conversation like 3 times, like, hey, I think you're great. I think you're a great instructor. I would love for you to stick around, but hey, it's not your business anymore. It's not your business. And like we had to have that conversation so many times to where, thank God, I did not have to let her go. She did finally just resign because the power struggle did get to be like a bit too much for everyone, I feel. So
Well, hopefully you can continue on the path you're on now and be able to grow everything and get it to where you want it to be. Kind of put your own touch on it. And you had mentioned earlier that you were doing a little bit of the kind of motivational speaking. So I would say maybe not too far venturing out, but kind of turning a little bit more of the spiritual side of yoga into Pilates. Does that sound right? Like, does that make sense? So maybe you could
yeah.
talk about that a little bit and how that's going.
Yeah. So actually what I did was I did a sound healing meditation for my instructors. Um, just to kind of test it out and see if it would even work, if it would even blend in the Pilates world, because it's not talked about. And they loved it. Actually, and this is funny because if she ever sees this, she's gonna laugh. The previous owner had told me that after that, she slept the best that she had ever slept in, I think, 2 years or something like that. So I was like, awesome.
Wow.
I was able to grant that, like give that to you. That's amazing. But the
Yeah.
teachers, they absolutely loved it. One of them pulled me to the side and said, I've been trying to blend spiritual things and other forms of healing because she's also certified in, I want to say, somatic healing. Um, into
Mhm.
Pilates, and she just hasn't found the right owner to help her incorporate those things. So some of them were really receptive and like, hey, I want to do like a healing Pilates class, and can we talk about that? And then others were just like, oh, that was great. Like, that was fun. I never had it. Okay. And they just like went on with their life. So I haven't fully integrated a class or anything for my actual clients, but going forward, that's something that I'm looking to offer for them. Obviously, you would need to either learn to play the sound bowls or some type of sound meditation instrument to like, incorporate or pay someone to be able to play that live music while you have the course. So that's like one way I want to incorporate it is healing through touch, and then the other one is like incorporating sound healing meditation during a class. So more to come on that.
Yeah, you might be onto something. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you I feel like a lot of people when you kind of merge things or really listen and figure out, what is something that's needed or another way to kind of shift the way the business is going, sometimes it takes off and it really works. So hopefully that'll be something that you can put your own touch on and it'll turn out to be very successful, I think.
Yeah, I hope so.
I appreciate you coming on and learning so much from you. But so if somebody's in the Austin area, what is the name of the studio and how can they find you?
Okay, so the name of the studio is Zenergy Pilates. It's located in Austin, Texas, kind of in the Lakeway area. You can find us at zenergypilates.com. You can send us an email at zenergypilates@gmail.com, or feel free to follow any one of our social media, Facebook or Instagram. That's also Zenergy Pilates.
Cool. Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get some more customers out of that. And then I always ask two questions at the end. So, first one is, have you ever had a mentor, or do you have a mentor currently?
Um, I have not had a mentor. I have thought about it. I actually was invited to BFS, the Boutique Fitness Solutions, and I really wanted a mentor from there. Actually, I when I first took over the business, you can say kind of she was like a mentor. KK Hart was kind of a
Okay.
mentor for me. She was my consultant when I first took over the business, and I can say that she helped me think the way that I needed to think to grow the business. There was a lot of things that I didn't know I needed to pay attention to as far as the marketing realm and how to understand your metrics and your retention of clients. And she helped me kind of get on that road. And so I would say that if you are starting a business, having a mentor or a consultant, at least starting out, is very, very important. And it's important to have to push you through the next level, right? Dealing with people that just have done this before.
Yeah. No, that's some great advice. So, all right. So the final question: what drives you? What motivates you to be even more successful than you already are?
Oh man. This is going to be really funny. Well, at first it was because I come from a very challenged background. A lot of my family are is in poverty, and I kind of just wanted to lead the way for them that, we don't have to just be stuck in our 9 to 5, or we don't have to live off the government. I mean, you could do all these great things with your life. And at first that was like my biggest motivator. And also securing a future for my son, teaching him those things that, you can own businesses, you can be successful this way. If school isn't for you, hey, mom's here to show you the way. And but lately it's been because I'm enjoying luxury shopping and I just want to make more money to spend more money. So
Oh man, those are some great reasons. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's funny how it changes, right? Like you'll never stop wanting to be there and be a good example for your family and your friends, especially your children. But then as you kind of overcome each little hurdle, then things become a little bit different, a little bit easier for you. So that's great. And again, thanks for the transparency.
of course.
So but yeah, it's been great chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about some of the changes and shifts that you're going to make with the business, and I'm guessing you're going to continue to be successful and probably call me and say you want to do some renovations sometime or maybe move to a bigger studio, and hopefully we can help you with that. So that would be great. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes. Thanks so much, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. We hope you found this podcast informative and helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. For more information, or if you'd like to discuss a transaction, please go to www.jaredwjohnson.com.